Member Scott, you're recognized for your testimony.
Good, thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member McGovern, and members of the committee. This week, the House is expected to consider H.J. Res. 30, which is a disapproval resolution under the Congressional Review Act to nullify the Department of Labor's final rule entitled Prudence and Loyalty in Selecting Plan Investments and Exercising Shareholder Rights. The Department of Labor finalized this rule last December. It clarifies that retirement plan fiduciaries may consider the economic effects of climate change and other environmental, social, and governance factors, ESG factors, when they make investment decisions for participants in retirement plans covered by ERISA. The rule also clarifies that proxy voting is a key component to fiduciary management. Now, first of all, this rule is not an ESG mandate. It simply clarifies that the professionals who make investment decisions for retirement plans do not violate their fiduciary duties by appropriately considering ESG factors. In the final rules preamble, it said, and I quote, "The final rule makes unambiguous that it is not establishing a mandate that ESG factors are relevant under every circumstance, nor is it creating an incentive for a fiduciary to put a thumb on the scale in favor of ESG factors." Now, additionally, the rule does not change the fiduciary standard to which professionals making investment decisions for retirement plans are bound. They still must prioritize interests of retirement plan participants and cannot sacrifice investment returns to pursue ESG goals. And if there's any indication that plan fiduciaries have sacrificed investment returns or committed any fiduciary breach, the plan participants have a right of action under ERISA. I'm a strong supporter of this sensible rule and count myself among those in my district and across the country who believe that retirement plan fiduciaries should consider ESG factors. But let's be clear, consideration of ESG factors is not at odds with making a profit. In fact, workers' profit motives are central. If a company has negative externalities, such as a carbon-intensive business practice, high liability risks, a record of poor corporate governance, or mistreating workers, its stock could suffer in the long term. And given that workers often contribute to these retirement plans for decades before drawing on their savings, retirement plan fiduciaries must consider a long-term horizon when making investment decisions. Now, there's widespread support for the Labor Department's rule. According to an analysis of comment letters submitted by the proposed rule, 83% of the letters submitted by institutions, including corporations, financial firms, asset managers, academics, lawyers, investment organizations, non-governmental organizations, public officials, trade groups, and labor organizations, 83% were supportive of the rule. Individuals submitted over 22,000 comments, and over 97% supported the proposed rule. I ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, that an analysis of the comments be entered into the record.
Without objection.
And I want to highlight one supportive comment letter from the financial services industry, BNY Mellon Investment Management, which at the end of 2022 had $2.4 trillion in assets under management, submitted a supportive comment letter to the Labor Department. And from that letter, I quote, the proposal appropriately balances the materiality that ESG factors can have on an investment value with the Department's longstanding principle that a fiduciary's duty of prudence and loyalty require the fiduciary to consider factors that are material to investment value. In particular, fiduciary should not subordinate the interests of plan participants and beneficiaries to other objectives, nor sacrifice investment return, nor take additional investment risk to promote goals unrelated to the plan and its participants and beneficiaries. I ask unanimous consent that their letter be entered into the record.
Without objection.
Now, if H.J. Res. 30 passes and becomes law, the DOL rule will be nullified and the policy will revert to the Trump era ESG rule. This would be a significant step backwards That rule was widely seen as putting a thumb on the scale against ESG investing. The world's largest assets managers opposed the Trump-era ESG rule, and according to the same analysis I previously mentioned and entered into the record, more than 95% of the comments opposed the Trump-era rulemaking. Enacting H.J. Res. 30 would also mean that the Labor Department would be barred from conducting similar rulemaking going forward. So conceivably, if this resolution becomes law, we would be stuck for a long time with a deeply flawed Trump-era ESG rule. Before I conclude, I want to make one final point, and that's back to the preamble. The Labor Department says, and I quote, "As with other types of investment factors, climate change and other ESG factors sometimes may be relevant to a risk-return analysis and sometimes not. And when relevant, they may be factored into investment decisions along with other relevant factors as deemed appropriate by the plan fiduciary." And that's the key. It's up to the plan fiduciaries, consistent with their fiduciary responsibilities. Now, some may agree with ESG, some may not, but that's okay. What the point is that the Labor Department's rule simply puts the decision-making where it belongs, in the hands of the retirement plan fiduciaries who are best positioned and bound by law to act prudently on behalf of plan participants, and that's where the decision-making should be. They, not members of Congress, know what's in the best interest of their plan participants, and again, they are bound by their fiduciary responsibilities to do the right thing. So I plan to oppose H.J. Res. 30 when it comes to the House floor tomorrow, and encourage all of the members to do the same. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today and look forward to your questions.
Chair has no questions. I simply associate myself with the